Hey everybody, it's Friday night and it was just pouring here in Brooklyn. I just got back, was out seeing some friends and we just got back and got rained on. And I did want to do this live stream. As I said, I'm going to be doing some more of these in general, talk about the campaign. Hey, what's up? Talk about the campaign, but also to talk about and lay out the arguments around this book I'm doing with Doug Lane and Zero Books on the cosmopolitan socialist answer to the IDW, with also a critique of where I see both sides of the left making mistakes, both the econ Marx side, where I'm mostly at, but there's some failings there, and then also the identity side with a new synthesis, bringing together everybody from Marx to Amartya Sen to Jimmy Iovine. But tonight we're also going to be talking about the campaigns, and I want to talk about Beto O'Rourke, right? So it's no secret I'm 100% supportive of Bernie Sanders. He stands alone, not only in terms of policy, but in terms of an understanding of basically the fundamental class conflicts that not only are driving our politics, but also the type of... I saw that Kyle did the segment, props to Kyle, love Kyle. Secular Talk is obviously a great show, much appreciated, and Kyle and I will do more soon. But the thing is, so, I'm assessing all of these candidates with, and again, I'm not even pretending, my mind's made up. And there's different critiques of all of them, obviously, going in a descending order. And I'm kind of, though, surprised myself by how annoyed I am with Beto O'Rourke. And I've kind of started to realize that, why that is today. And it's because, let's just break it down really simply. You have Bernie Sanders, he's 77 years old. He's on a mission. He's, trying basically, to do this for the country, for the world. And I really believe that. And that doesn't mean that Bernie doesn't have his mistakes. It doesn't mean that Bernie, doesn't have his shortcomings, blah, blah, blah. But he's a mission-driven candidate. And he's a warrior. And Elizabeth Warren, I think she definitely, as I said, I think she's got some real blind spots in terms of understanding power. I think her time was in 2016 and so on. I wish she was, I'm actually, at this phase, I'm definitely glad she's in the race, but she's not my candidate. But look, she's putting forward great policy ideas. She's a great senator. She has an amazing track record. She also has a great bottom-up life story. And then there's other candidates where it's like, look, let's just be real. I mean, Kamala Harris, obviously. I mean, this is a centrist, very corporate-friendly Democrat with an extremely disturbing record on criminal justice. But look, the reality is that the first potential African-American woman president is an innately big thing. And then you have Beto O'Rourke coming along. And frankly, even Howard Schultz. Even demented, ridiculous Howard Schultz, and again, because he's completely insulated in this plutocratic fantasy world, and his vision of the world is catastrophic and just totally morally damaged. But there's something in his delusion where he actually thinks this is a contribution. And to have Beto O'Rourke come out with just a raw, empty narcissism. There's no reason for this to happen other than the fact that the dude got really stoked when he was out campaigning for Senate, that he built a national profile and he gets to hang out with great, with cool people. He gets to be on Oprah. He gets to meet, LeBron shouts him out on Instagram. And people like me strongly supported him. If he took on John Cornyn, I would do segments on this show about how good it would be to have Beto in the Senate. And again, not just to beat a guy who quotes Mussolini on Twitter, but also because for a red state Democrat, Beto's decent. But the reality is that this is a guy, first of all, on the merits, he has a very conservative voting record for a Democrat. And secondly, what's up? And secondly, this thing that he's doing, which is this total, this is my home office, guys. The lighting is not professional. There isn't even an overhead light in this room. He's doing this thing. Yes, it is an Obama knockoff. And he is doing this quite literally, he's a pale version of Obama. But that comparison works, but actually the more I've thought about it, the more it actually does a real disservice to President Obama, right? So President Obama could come out and give a lecture or a rally speech, and maybe lecture is an appropriate slip because he literally was, a lecturer. He was an academic. He was a serious intellectual. That's a bad joke. And you could watch him give a speech on his view of the arc of American progress and disagree with it. I'll get to Peter Buttigieg in a second. And disagree with it. Because, if you're like me, you're a socialist, or if, you just have a more skeptical view of the arc of human history, you're wary of Obama's optimism, whatever. You could critique it. You could see a problem there. But on the other hand, Barack Obama's speeches were incredibly well crafted, and they always had a serious argument to them. So there would be a arc that started with, like this, the founders said, and then we didn't listen to our own ideals, and then Lincoln, and maybe I shouldn't even do the impression because it's a serious point. President Obama had a build-up to that inspiring rhetoric. And it was a build-up that was very historically oriented and had a view of the world. A view of the world that I think was certainly influenced by obviously Lincoln. It was influenced by maybe even a book like The Second Founding on sort of like expansion of rights, post-Civil War, reinterpretation of the Constitution. He was wrong in my estimation about many things, just a disagreement. But his arguments stood as coherent wholes. Beto O'Rourke is out there giving word salads that sound like the verbiage of an Obama speech put through the blender of a Silicon Valley episode. It's gobbledygook, meaningless management speak meets attempt to emulate President Obama. And anytime, he's always running as fast as he can to get away from policy. But anytime he gets close to getting on policy, it was a major statement today. He said, I'm not convinced anymore that Medicare for all is the best way to get there. Well, I'm convinced that he's not a legitimate candidate, period, because of what he said. So it isn't just that he is on the right of the Democratic Party, because again, let's be real and let's be blunt. Even if they've moved their positions somewhat, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, these people are to the center, to the right of the Democratic Party, certainly if you assess their whole records. Amy Klobuchar is just an atrocious candidate and very much to the, campaigning as I'm going to preserve the discredited right of the Democratic Party. So, but that's still an ideological point. And there is something so incredible about being in the state of the world we're in today and not either having a systemic critique that a Sanders or a Warren would offer, frankly, a Tulsi Gabbard would offer, or not offering it's very Japanese style, bro. We're not offering any type of just frankly innate breakthrough, right? And most of the other candidates, from Bernie Sanders to Julian Castro, could not say they were born to just run because of the history of this country and because of their identities. And honestly, if Beto, if he came out with serious policy proposals, I wouldn't hold that quote against him. But because it is literally just, it almost seems even like he is born to run. This is the part he enjoys. And that's why he's always on social media. That's why there's this like narcissistic clawing of attention. We are in this state, and this is another amazing thing about these resistance people. I'm not impressed with Andrew Yang. These resistance people are simultaneously constantly hyperventilating about the crisis of Donald Trump without ever, of course, wanting to deal with the systems crisis that led us to Donald Trump. From economics to race to history to neoliberalism, all of it. But then they're willing to get behind, and I guess it makes sense emotionally because their answer is they just want a generic emotional response, but they're willing to get behind somebody who's running a campaign for a fundamentally unserious world. I mean, a campaign that's actually so vacuous, it's like pre-Bush era, and how wafer thin it is. And I just think that, again, I think strategically it will help Sanders because he's fighting in that broader center-left, center-right to center-left establishment corporate pool. But the reminder of him and all of the media class that flocks to him, of people who on one hand can be so sanctimonious, but are so fundamentally unserious about the broader crisis we're in and how to actually deal with it, is actually pisses me off. And that's why I will go really hard at Beto. Thank you. Because he represents not only a bad campaign, not only a distraction, but all of even just like the cultural pathologies of a way overly accredited in terms of literally like credentials, way over money. He's married into a real estate empire. Can place a group of people that want to pat themselves on the back for how moral they are. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, without any type of systems critique. It's this knockoff posturing wokeness that has no material politics and it has none of the kind of broader guiding empathy that really can help us wrestle with our politics and ourselves in a good, healthy, non-vampire castle, non-bullshit, non-performative way that acknowledges everybody's foibles and really works and is really honest. But there's something of that raw narcissism and delusion of this effort that encapsulates so much. Maybe that's why, in some ways, it's a good thing he's running, because he distills so many problems. But I gotta say, I'm not gonna do the Obama comparison anymore. Obama never came out and he was just like, healthcare. Well, I think healthcare is good. I think healthcare is amazing. And we've got this thing called ingenuity in healthcare, and that's democracy. Much less ridiculous hand movements and actual coherent thought patterns. This is a offensive cover band act for a very serious time in the world. The only thing I'll say about Pete Buttigieg, not good on Medicare for all. He reversed himself. He's running as a centrist technocrat, which is just purely insufficient at best, profoundly counterproductive at worst. But I will say, if you're looking at Beto, look at Buttigieg, because it's nuts that you wouldn't at least engage with somebody that's out there making policy arguments and clearly is actually there with some type of actual agenda. Peter Buttigieg has said really smart things about the Supreme Court, and I would need to learn more about him. And of course, he's a gay man. I mean, that's history too. But, yeah, if you can't go for the real, the real broader stuff, and you're kind of in that sort of upper middle class, affluent sort of lane with these kind of technocratic white guy candidates, at least give Pete a chance. All right, guys. I love you all, and see you soon. Oh, that was a good signal. I got to run now. Appreciate all of you. Of course, if you want how we make everything happen, patreon.com/TMBS. Well, if you haven't yet, watch the trailers for the video Illicit Histories. I'm incredibly excited about that. I really appreciate all of you, and much love. Have a great weekend, everybody.